the Chiefs beat the Texans 23-14. So they advance to the AFC Championship game where they will host the Buffalo Bills. We've been there and done that. It'll be the seventh consecutive AFC title game for Kansas City. When you buy tickets to the Chiefs, you're pretty much guaranteed to get an AFC title game at home. Most of those have been at Arrowhead Stadium. So Kelce had 7 catches, 117 yards. So if my Maller math and computer-like brain tells me, so if Mahomes had 177 yards and Kelce had 117, the rest of the team had hardly any. So the Chiefs get to 16-2 when you combine regular and postseason, and they keep the dream alive. The dream is very much alive for the third consecutive Super Bowl. That has never happened before. This would be unprecedented if Kansas City can win 2 more games. 2 more games. However, the better story is in the losing locker room. The Texans are the first team in NFL postseason history to outgain their opponent by 100 yards, have no turnovers, and lose. Prior to the Texans, the teams that were in that situation had played 49 times, and they were 49-0. You are the exception to the rule, Houston. Now, let's discuss the wide-angle lens on this one. How much of the blame goes to C.J. Stroud in the Texans' loss? So I've got grandfather clock, Andy Warhol, and 4-leaf clover. And we will combine all of these things together, and we're going to send you to boot camp. Because the Texans, next time they get together in any meaningful practice, will be training camp, which is the NFL's version of boot camp. All right, so to kick off here, C.J. Stroud gets the Texas-sized share of the... Well, you can't say that. You didn't watch the game. You don't know what you're talking about. What's wrong with you? Shut up. He didn't suck. That's not the point, right? He simply wasn't good enough. C.J. Stroud. The bar is high. Houston's offense scored 12 points. If you're only scoring 12 points and you lose the game, you're part of the problem. Remember, even though they finished with 14, there was that safety at the end of the game to get the other 2 points. So they had 12 points in the game. It was historically terrible, the Texans' offense. Now, what is my evidence? The Houston Texans are the 147th team to have 320 or more yards of offense, no turnovers in a playoff game. And they're the only team out of those 147 to not score more than 14 points, and their offense only generated 12 points. Why? I'll tell you why. It's the hidden thing between the margins. C.J. Stroud, somebody needs to buy him. Maybe Chris in Houston or Mr. Irrigation or one of the other guys that listen in Houston. They can buy C.J. Stroud a grandfather clock because his internal clock is broken. He needs a grandfather clock to tell the time. Stroud was sacked not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5 times. How about 8 times? The man was sacked 8 times. Now, the sack is a quarterback stat. It's not an offensive line stat. It's a quarterback stat. Derailing drive after drive after drive. Now, for those of you that don't understand ball, the real ones know. A sack is half a turnover. So, therefore, if you have 8 sacks, you've turned the ball over 4 times. Do you understand? 8 sacks, each sack worth half a turnover, so 8 sacks equals 4 turnovers. So if I told you C.J. Stroud turned the ball over 4 times, you say, well, he didn't play well. But the way you break down the game, they say that a fumble or an interception is worth 4 points in terms of the outcome of the game. A sack is worth 2 points. So again, do the math. All right, that's 16 points that C.J. Stroud cost the Houston Texans. And there were special teams blunders. There was about as bad a field goal miss as you can possibly have. There was an extra point missed. You even had some guy I've never heard of on Houston shoving one of the coaches, and then Joe Buck and Troy Aikman pretending like it didn't happen. It seemed like kind of a big deal. It's a playoff game, and one of your guys is shoving the coach and screaming at him on the sidelines. I would think that would deserve more attention. But what do I know? I just do the overnight show. So they needed to be perfect. They were not. Now, furthermore, the story after the game was all about the officials. It was all about the officials. You had Joe Mixon say everybody knows how it is playing here, meaning Kansas City at Arrowhead. You can never leave it into the ref's hands. The whole world see, man. Okay. I don't think that's the King's English, but wait, there's more. How about DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the Texans? Here's DeMeco Ryans and talking about the officiating and what it was like.
We knew going into this game, man, it was us versus everybody. Right? When I say everybody, it's everybody, all of whatever. Everybody, the naysayers, the doubt, right? Everybody we had to go against today.
Okay, everybody. There's a common theme. Here is the man we just talked about, C.J. Stroud. Here's his take on the controversial calls that went in favor of Houston.
I'm not going to go back and forth on what I thought was a call, what I thought wasn't a call.
Why not?
And one of those things you kind of know what's up before you even walk in the arena. We got to be better and just being accountable and sound. And, some things, I think we had a couple calls that weren't called that I'm begging for, but at the same time, it is what it is. I can't argue with the ref, and at the same time, this kind of thing, it's us against the world when you're playing in these type of environments and games.
So this is like when Republicans or Democrats send out talking points, like they clearly told the team, listen, here's what you can say. It's us versus the world. That's the talking point. Us versus the world. Okay. Us versus the world. So how do Andy Reid's Chiefs benefit from the officials? So this is one of those things. It reminds me of my life. There have been some teams that have home field advantage, but it doesn't seem to just happen at Arrowhead Stadium where there's controversial calls. The Texans are a mentally weak team. They crumbled from frustration, from distraction. They lost their composure, and it helps Andy Reid's team more times than not because, as Andy Warhol famously said, perception precedes reality, and our thoughts are shaped by our own reality. And so no matter if I gave you all kinds of numbers to tell you, well, the officiating on a call-by-call basis, when you add it all up, it's not lopsided in favor of Kansas City. You don't want to hear that, right? You're like, well, I just saw what happened, and there were some calls that certainly looked soft, absolutely soft, that went in favor of the Chiefs. The data, though, shows since Patrick Mahomes became a starting quarterback for the Chiefs in 2018, so 7 years ago, Kansas City has been penalized 693 more yards than their opponent, including the playoffs. You can't say that. That's not right. I know my eyes tell me something else. You can't say that. 693 more yards penalized against Kansas City. In fact, that is the fourth worst penalty yard differential since 2018. So they're in the bottom percentile when it comes to this kind of thing. But wait, there's more. When the game is close, late and close, game on the line, Kansas City must get all the calls then, right? Every key call goes in favor of Mahomes and Andy Reid. The Chiefs have the seventh worst yard differential since Mahomes took over in the fourth quarter and overtime of games decided by one score. However, again, perception precedes reality. And we've seen this. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch the NBA a lot, and the Celtics with Red Auerbach. There was this belief that the Celtics got every call at the old Boston Garden, and they had these dead spots on the parquet, and the Celtic players knew where they were, but the opponent didn't. When I was doing stuff with the Dodgers, there was a guy that passed through the Dodgers who had played for the 1990s Yankees. For George Steinbrenner was the owner. And he told me, he said, they played at Yankee Stadium. The other team was intimidated. The umpire, they believed they were invincible. They got every call. The other team thought they got every 50-50 call at Yankee Stadium. There's certain situations like this, whether they're real or imagined, and the Chiefs right now are riding high, and Andy Reid is benefiting, and Mahomes and Kelsey, from the perception, which is the reality, that they're getting all the calls, even though the numbers indicate that is not the case. Now, last thing, we have reached the Final Four, woohoo, of the NFL. Down to the Final Four. NFC Championship game. The Super Bowl will be either Philadelphia at home or Washington on the road going to New Orleans. The AFC, Buffalo and Kansas City. So what kind of storylines can we expect this week? What kind of storylines can we expect from championship week in the NFL? The road to New Orleans. Well, this is a four-leaf clover situation. We've come down to the four-leaf clover for Super Bowl 59. Pretty good drama. The obvious big one is Josh Allen trying to get the Komodo dragon off his back and end the misery against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. That is the main event. The Chiefs on the road to history, 3 consecutive Super Bowls. 3 consecutive Super Bowls. So that's the big one. All right, does Allen get it done? Are the Bills good enough? They already beat Kansas City once, but that was a close game. That was a home game. The weather's also an issue here. We're going to get bad weather in Philadelphia, bad weather in Kansas City. That'll be a factor. What about the officials? They'll announce the officiating crew. I think they already have announced it. But does the officiating bias go towards Kansas City? Is Taylor Swift going to be there? Of course. What about Caitlin Clark? So Angry Bill can get all excited. And the Swifties versus Bills Mafia. You've got that. And the undercard, Jaden Daniels on this magic carpet ride. Does it continue? Does he complete the greatest rookie season of all time and go to a Super Bowl as a rookie and be the reason? There have been other rookie quarterbacks that have had success, but to be the central reason behind that? Washington doesn't have a great defense. They don't. Their special teams are okay, but it's really about the magic, the je ne sais quoi of Jaden Daniels at quarterback. And then you've got Saquon Barkley shoving it down the throat of the New York Giant ownership every time he has a massive run and trying to put the Eagles on his back and get them there. They don't have much of a quarterback. Jalen Hurts isn't that good. And then there's the other storyline with Jalen Hurts, his health. He refused to answer whether or not he was going to be okay. Does the clock strike midnight on Jalen Hurts? Philadelphia's defense didn't look all that good to me. That's a beatable defense if you're Washington. The Rams went up and down the field, had a lot of yardage against the Philadelphia Eagles and bad weather. So that is a beatable Eagles defense. I would not be shocked at all if Washington ends up in the bleeping Super Bowl. That's insane. I did not think